March 20th, 2024 was a historical day for Europe, and not surprisingly, we have heard nothing of it on mainstream media. Thanks to the efforts of Francisco Guerreiro, the UAP topic made its entrance into the European Parliament. The first exchange of views in modern times, titled UAP Reporting and Scientific Assessment, took place with the presence of an international panel of experts from various fields of study and competencies. Guerreiro made an introductory speech to assess the importance and urgency of the UAP topic for the European Union, presenting also the pillars of his proposition. Eduardo Russo made a historical EU contextualization of the UAP phenomenon, while Ryan Graves talked about the US government developments. The highest points of the event were definitely the scientific perspective on UAP by Dr. Beatrice Villaroel and the expert testimonies by commercial pilot Christian van Heist. You can watch the whole event, the link provided in our video description below. Francisco Guerreiro got a degree in social communication from the Higher School of Education, and he's a MEP for the group of the Greens European Free Alliance in the European Parliament since 2019. In Brussels, he works in the committees on budgets and on fisheries, and he was also first vice chair of the Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development between May 2019 and January 2021. He's also a member of the Committee of Inquiry on the Protection of Animals during Transport, as well as of the delegations for relations with the Korean Peninsula and Japan. Furthermore, he is Vice President of the Intergroup on the Welfare and Conservation of Animals and a member of the Intergroup of LGBTI Rights. He also participates in the Alliance Against Hunger and Malnutrition of the FAO of the United Nations in the European Parliament. So, without further ado, let's welcome our guest. Hi, Mr. Guerreiro. Thank you very much for being here. It's a pleasure and honor to have you here on our podcast.
No, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. So March 20th, 2024 was an historical date, and you brought the UAP topic to the European Parliament. And of course, first of all, congratulations for your effort, for your courage, and for this initiative, which is actually very important and urgent. So the first question is, what brought you to get interested into the UAP topic and decide to bring it to the European Parliament?
Yeah. So again, thanks for having me, and congratulations to your work. Basically, I would say there are two main characteristics that led me to this topic. The first one is personal. So my mother was, because she's not with us anymore, but a professor of biology, and so she always taught me to be critical with the status quo and with the powers to be, and also to be very curious about issues that we still don't have any answer, because that's the natural process of the scientific methods. If you don't understand something, we inquire, we test it, and we try to reach conclusions and reinforce our knowledge in every field of our existence. And so that was the main thing. So I was always very critical, I was always very curious, and I was taught to question everything in a very scientific way, obviously. And secondly, the congressional hearing also in the US, that was a very important bipartisan move that led me to also make some actions here in the European Parliament, drinking from their knowledge, but also reinforcement this approach that politics should not be excluded from the debate. On the contrary, there should be like a very scientific, open debate on the topic, which includes politicians, which includes political groups, and should also be with the scientific community and the civil society. And so this led me to make three questions to the European Commission, one of which was already replied, two interventions in the European Parliament plenary, one amendment to a report on the EU budget for the next year, requesting finance for financial resources to the European space law that is being presented by the European Commission in the next year. So that the budget should consider, the EU budget should consider this topic, UAPs, and the possibility of having more resources to study this phenomena. And the events, two more. So the events that I made last week on the 20th that had several keynote speakers, and the main objective was to talk about the path here of the European Parliaments and the tools that we have to improve the topic of UAPs, but especially to change. That was the main topic, at least for my presentations, to change the regulations 376/2014, that is focused on the regulation of the civil aviation. So we do have this regulation that talks about safety of the civil aviation, but does not include UAPs. So
Yeah.
my main concern was to debate on the possibility of improving this regulation, and uh, also I introduced also last week individual motion for resolution that is like a request for the European Commission to do change this regulation. So it is physically a document that I propose that the Commission makes this improvement on the regulation, but it first goes to the committee responsible. We still don't know which is the committee responsible because the Parliament services will decide.
Yeah.
But let's imagine that is the committee, is the subcommittee of defense, for example. Probably it would be internal markets, the one that I'm in, IMCO. But well, let's assume that is IMCO. So it goes to the IMCO committee, and then they will analyze. The chair of the committee and the other groups will analyze if this individual motion for resolution can follow, and if it can follow, then it becomes like a procedure, and the documents it becomes an opinion that is sent afterwards to votes and then to the commission, so they can or not continue with the process. But this is a political tool. At least if you look at the European Parliament's website and in my page concretely, everything that I do and also on these topics are there. So the questions, the interventions, the individual motion for resolution, not the event, because the event is not directly correlated to the Parliament and the parliamentary work, but it's also parliamentary work. It's more on the group basis, and it's more an individual action that I made inside the European Parliament as a member of the European Parliament. But it's not like the traditional, so to say, work that a
Yeah.
parliamentarian does, that it's equal to all of them. So questions to the commission, interventions, motion for resolutions, reports, that is common to all the MEPs.
Oh, thanks for clarifying this. I think many, especially in Europe, many people are not aware of which are the steps actually and how does like a proposition like this works, you know, in Parliament. So I guess that was a very great insight into it. And what was, I must ask, what was your impression actually there by like being there? Of course, we have seen that in video, and it was very encouraging for a lot of us that are interested in the topic. But what was your impression there? I mean, the public, the people reaction, your colleagues' reaction to this topic.
Yes, so this was I would say not a private event, but
Yeah,
an event that was proposed by me.
by invitation.
I was the only member of the European Parliament that talked and is talking about the subject. So I would say that, and I know that there are some interested MEPs, but since we are in an election period, they probably are afraid of talking about it or making
Yeah,
some more concrete actions. But I know that it had a huge repercussion. The last time I saw it on my social media, the YouTube, it had 8,000 views, a lot of shares, a lot of comments. I also had a very good feedback from people outside the parliament and inside the parliament, but also some EU institutions. But obviously, there's a level of stigma that people have not surpassed, and so we kind of see that it's something that has to be worked on. But again, my main concern is not to be the most known person in the European Parliament to talk about this issue. Is to start the conversation, to have a very scientific approach to the topic, and also to give light to other communities, to other professionals, to people that are already working on this topic, for us to all have a transparent and broader debate. So that's why I feel that this event was important, because it showed that a member of the parliament is willing to debate this topic with openness, that it will reduce the stigma, or one of the purposes is to reduce the stigma also on the political sphere, but also with other professionals and communities that, do feel that they have something to say, but sometimes they don't have the political strength or the political background to do so. That's why, for example, I think that one of the most important speakers that we had was Christian van Eist. That was the pilot, the civil aviation pilot, that came and very professionally reported on his experience, and also the need for the EU to have a harmonized system of monitoring, reporting, and collecting the data, and then having also like a disciplinary, multidisciplinary team to analyze this data and transparently reporting to also EU institutions and these groups of professionals, namely civil aviation, and also to the outside, to the civil society. So I think that was one of the most courageous one, because he's pushing his personal comfort and also having some liability on his profession, but he wants to be very honest, to be very straightforward, and he is requiring and requesting just this system. So I don't think this is, besides the noise that we all know that exists on this topic, he wants a simple thing, a system that he can report as a professional what he cannot explain, so other people can analyze it, and we try to find what it is. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, of course, in the US, everything started from a military point of view and a social and security point of view, with, of course, Ryan Graves, Dave Fravor, and this very famous sighting. But it's still not. It does seems that commercial pilots, for example, are not yet so involved, probably because what you just says, they are afraid of retaliation. So I think, if I understood well, you would also asking a bill aiming to ease UAP reporting and prevent basically these commercial crews from any retaliation if they choose to come forward and reporting, if that's correct.
Yes, so this regulation already encompass the possibility of reporting these issues, but they are correlated to security issues, and sometimes the experience that these pilots have does
Yeah.
not put in jeopardy their security, so to say, because you don't have like an object flying nearby, or that may pose any known security issue to the flights or to the plane. That's why, and it's so specific that these pilots need a better improvement of the regulation to encompass and specifically mention UAPs, because they are so experienced that they do know what are natural phenomena, that are other aircraft, that are phenomena that they can explain through other means, but there's a percentage of these phenomena that they cannot explain,
Yeah.
and also crossing information with the radars, with the operators, with other professionals that are on the plane. They cannot clearly explain what it is, and so it's not just a question of safety. It's a question of reporting a phenomena that doesn't even put them into questioning in terms of safety, but it needs to be reported. So we try to analyze it through other means what it is, and so that's why this improvement and the action that I also made in the European Parliament regarding this issue has a different approach from the US. So the US, it's strategically, they have more security
Yeah.
mindset, and so the military also has a bigger role playing in this topic. Here in the European Union, we have a more civil, academic, scientific approach to space, for example. We have a more commercial approach to civil aviation because it's mainly used by civil aviation. And then we have different competence. For example, we are a union, but we are not a federation. So, for example,
Yeah.
when we talk about national security and military assets, it's more on the basis of member states. So each member state has their competence on this matter. Although we have some level of cooperation in military exercises, in military cooperation and coordination through the several 27 member states structures, but it's mainly competence of the member states. Civil aviation is more an EU competence, and space is also a EU competence.
Yeah.
So it's different, the approach, and mainly our approach, for example, to space, it's scientific, it's civil society based, and it's different from the US that it's more militarized,
Yeah.
a more militarized approach. And so, also due to that those difference, I think the most strategic and rational way for us to be debating the topic here is through the lens of civil aviation space, commercial civil aviation space, or European space. That is also correlated to the European space law. That is a proposal that is being proposed. Sorry, the redundancy. So a proposal that is being proposed. It's a redundancy by the European Commission. And that also have a feature that talks about safety, and UAPs could also be included on this European space law that overall wants to harmonize and improve the industries and the institutions that surround the space here in the European Union. That has a more, as I said, a more scientific and more
Yeah.
civil-based approach than the US, that it's more militarized.
Yeah. For example, since you talk about air and space, and I also know that you are very involved in a committee on fisheries, for example. So what about, I'm sure you know about cases of UAPs detecting underwater, for example. And do you think that in this harmonization system also the marine aspect of UAPs will be included, maybe in the future, hopefully, or?
Yeah, I think it's wishful thinking to think, again, redundancy, that the EU will move forward really quick on the topic. I wish I'm wrong. Let's see the next mandate. But the mandate will be probably very conservative, with a lot of groups of the far rights that are climate deniers, that want to destroy the European Union. And so topics of this gender might not be as easy debated as we hope for, and or might be used by these very extreme groups to undermine the EU project, because, for example, they can have like this conception of deep states, that something is hidden, and the EU is like the darkest of the bureaucrats that want to, I don't know, close
Yeah.
every type of political debate and civil society knowledge and transparency. And so they kind of live in a bubble. And one of my concerns is that this issue is not caught up by the extreme rights mainly.
Mhm.
We also have extreme left, but their percentage is really low. So the extreme right, and then they kind of use this topic with some noise surrounding it to attack the EU institutions. That's why it's important, I think, for the moderates and the progressives and the EU pro political groups to debate this issue in a scientific way. But talking specifically by the perspective of fisheries, I would see that if I would be the one to decide, obviously it has to be like a topic that correlates with all these spheres. So not only civil aviation or the civil airspace, but space, but also the sea, because we do know there are reports that talk about objects that just pass through these elements and they don't have any resistance.
Yeah.
And so obviously it would have to be some kind of correlation, and also probably why not, because it would be interesting to understand if there's fishermen or people that work in uh, commercial maritime transport that
Mhm.
already saw some of these UAPs that could also use this tool to report these events, because in the end, whatever the findings, I think we should improve this system so we also know what's out there, if it's eventually some phenomena that can be explained by natural phenomena, that if it's like a military or something technologically that can be explained by human technology, or in the abstract, in the last resort, that it's something that is not one of these options, and we need to know what is. So
Yeah. Agree. And also, since you mentioned science, for example, at the beginning, and also the curiosity of like never close yourself to any possible ideas. That, of course, the UAP topic, even if politically it's a complicated aspect. And but of course, is talking about UAP also requires talking about what's going on in the US with David Grush and the latest congressional hearing, and also the hypothesis that the of NHI that this technology may be something that is not made by us. It doesn't come from here. Well, is that possibility scary for you? I mean, personally, and also, what do you mean from a European Parliament point of view, political point of view?
from a parliamentary point of view, I cannot speak for the rest of
Yeah,
the
of course, of course.
719 MEPs. I'm just one of
Yes.
720. I cannot also not even talk about my group, that I don't
Okay,
even
okay.
know if they have a position on this. I would
Of
assume
course.
not, because I don't know it. But if we look at a perspective of human development, that
Yeah.
that is also a question that we should ask for every big topic that we are inquiring and debating and pushing forward. For example, when we talk about artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
should we stick to the narrative of the big tech companies? Shouldn't we broaden the scope of the debate with the civil society, with
Okay.
citizens, with interest groups that are not mainly represented by these technologies, but they will be affected by them? Of course, yes. Shouldn't we also analyze our institutions, democratic institutions, if we have regulations and we have mechanisms that are not encompass the entirety of the professions that we are also elected to represent, namely civil pilots, military pilots and personnel, fishermen, agricultures, the so to say common citizen. I think we should always improve our institutions. So in the end, the question about unidentified anomalous phenomena is a question of improving democracy and improving the mechanisms of transparency in a topic that's, in the end, it can have both spectrums. So we can explain everything that happens
Mm-hmm.
perfectly by natural phenomena or human technology or whatever you want. fine. We should also be open to that possibility, or the other possibility that in we just need one case, because if you have one case that you clearly cannot explain by any means, and you do have the open door to other explanation beyond natural and human phenomena, well, then we have to rethink also our institutions,
Yeah.
our philosophical understanding of what it is to be human, of what it is to live in a democracy in a planet that only has one species that is common, that is our species, and we kind of divide ourselves between race and gender and countries and whatever. And so this can also lead to, for now, a philosophical debate of what it means to be human, what it means for us to be in a planet that may not be the only one with life, at least life, not in a bacterial way, but with
Yeah, exactly.
different forms that are more correlated to our understanding of intelligent life, so
Intelligent
to
life.
say. Although we are live in a planet that has abundance of life, and I think also we should have a bigger debate on the beauties that this planet has, and the massive destruction that we are making as one species to the
Yeah.
overall species, being plants or animals. But obviously, I think we should always be open to this rational, scientific, and philosophical debate on UAPs, but on other issues also. So, for example, when we talk about technology, should we
Yeah.
talk about transhumanism? What is the limits of our connection with technologies? Should the future of humanity be with a chip on our brains and enhancing our neurological capabilities? Is that the path that we want? It's not the path that we want. We are not having that debate.
Absolutely.
We are now having, for example, Neuralink with Elon Musk starting to use prototypes of these technologies to health. But we do know that there's always like the first door that is open. And if you don't have moral and ethical criteria to technology, it's just a small step for the massification of something. And in the end, we might end up, and this is that doesn't have nothing to regarding to any conspiracy, just a perception of the futures that we may have. We can have, for example, ships in our bodies and the entire surveillance of our society, and we already live in a world like that. So
Yeah.
the dangers are real, and we should be debating them, and we should be electing people that are very transparent on these issues and are not afraid of debating them in a very scientific, rational, moderate way. So then citizens decide who they want as their representatives, or else we will always be divided by these questions that are relevant, but are not the main ones. If migration, taxing, the economy, blah, 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 that is important, obviously, but we always should be willing to debate major political topics that may condition all these other debates. For example, if we find out there's technology that can free us from the tyranny of the energy companies, and
Absolutely.
traditionally they are correlated with fossil fuels. Shouldn't this be a priority
Yeah.
in our debate? Is it possible that we are going to thrive as a species if we continue this division between nations, between creeds, between colors, between whatever you may think, when we have access to different type of understanding how we function, or how can we better function as a society, if these divisions are real, or if they are used by the powers to maintain the same status quo? I think those are the debates that we should always have, independently of the main topic that we are more concerned about, if it's UAPs, if it's like technological unemployment, if it's like I think we should always have this debate in a very honest way, or else we'll be stupefied and dumbified by the traditional, very narrow approach of the traditional debates, political debates.
Absolutely. You touch such great points because the UAP is the tip of the iceberg. You know, there's a lot of, and it's not different from anything else. Of course, yes, a special quality in it because it could represent something that doesn't come from here, but it's also a philosophical debate, a sociological debate, and it should interest all humanity because, like you said, if one case was proven to be of non-terrestrial origin, that would probably oblige us to uh, to really take a big look into ourselves and redefine the way we approach, like you say, to we define society, democracy. It is absolutely very inspiring, and I wish every politician were like you. So that would really make a different world. And
That would
actually,
be kind of boring if everyone was
yeah,
like me,
absolutely, but not exactly like
but
like
at
you.
least open to debate it.
Yeah,
Yeah, at least
exactly.
open to debate.
Yeah, and you touch a great point about energy because you said, and I wanted to ask this specifically because like somebody like you, which is so interested in of course, animal green, the green side of the politics, and so the possibility that this technology may represent also solution for our energy problem must have touched you somehow. You know, I know that many
Mhm.
scientists have this also this idea.
Well, sorry to be a spoiler, but no, this didn't.
Okay.
This didn't touch my perception because as I perceive the world and as I read it and I understand it, and it's always flawed, obviously. And
Yeah.
I'm a politician, but also a citizen, and I'm flawed as everyone. But we don't need more technology to solve the problems that we have. The main problems that we have are sociological
Yeah.
and are mainly anthropocentric. So, this perception that we are the center of the planet and the universe and that we can simply do whatever we want, it's more of an inside perception of what we are than mainly a technological one that we need more technology to solve our problems. We don't need more
Hmm.
technology to solve our problems in terms of access to food, fighting climate change, wealth inequality, dealing with militaristic threats. We don't really need more technology because we also see that the push for new technology mainly comes from the military industrial
Yeah.
complex.
Yeah.
And so we have to question at what point do we understand that a barrel of a gun will resolve any problem, because we tried that through a lot of times and the end result is always the same.
Yeah.
And so in the end I think we really have to redefine ourselves and rethink also what politics is, and it should be more and more a space for people that don't promote their personal agenda, their ego, their personal interests, and should be as much transparent as possible, also to avoid those kind of things. We are all flawed. There are no perfect human beings. There are no perfect politicians. There are no perfect employees or employers. But if we have the mechanisms to decrease the percentage of people that might use the system to benefit themselves, we might have more people that benefit the system and not
Yeah.
themselves. And so it's a very rational mindset for me. But as you stated, also we are fighting. And I include myself in this community. for a system that transcends the status quo. And when we talk about the status quo, this can be very generalistic, but it also represents some interest groups that are very powerful. And when I say very powerful, sometimes it's not physically or monetarily, but ideologically.
Yeah.
And some of these groups have all these characteristics, obviously. But when we look, for example, the status quo of energy, when we look at the status quo of the financial groups, some families that uh, live very well with this economic system. When we look at religious and institutionalized religion, it's also a huge subject. When we talk about banking system, these are all status quo institutions that in some ways will always try to keep their power, because every institution that works to reinforce itself will do it, and they will not go easy if there's a transition. And also, some of them may understand that even these topics may be a source for them to profit in
Hmm.
a way. Profit, it doesn't mean that necessarily economically, but to maintain their status quo, to maintain their perception in the population. And you also talked in the question before that if I'm afraid of something, imagine that in a scenario there's someone or some entity that doesn't have the best interest in our species. I don't think that we will ever have the possibility of fighting in a way of understanding and try to manage this supposed threat if we are not united. But also we can be we should be careful to not also fall into a narrative that is being maybe pushed by us, that is an external threat, and then we just have to militarize everything to fight
Hmm.
and such a threat. Because to be honest, in the possibility, and this is just conceptions, these are just projections, these are just possibilities, if there's something that is technological way more advanced than us, I think that this will be very difficult for us to just try to, for example, reverse engineer a
Hmm.
weapon to fight it. Come on, let's be honest. It's like us trying or some ants trying to fight us as a different species and with technological developments that are
Yeah.
impossible to fight for. So we also should be very open to debate everything, but also to be very careful that some narratives may be pushed on us, and we should always question and the traditional narratives or the traditional powers. That's why the more transparent this debate is, the more science it brings, the more data we can analyze, the more knowledge we can share, the better I think the outcome would be for the majority. Obviously, there will always be someone that will not benefit from it, but again, we should try to have this debate as broader as we can, so we also avoid the noise. We also avoid those kind of we all know theories that don't add up and that don't really benefit who is willing, just questioning what these phenomena are and how can we better analyze them. So I think that's the main goal.
Yeah, and you and in this UA Parliament meeting, you actually had also a very very nice history presentation. So you had many speakers talking on different topics and different aspects of the UAP phenomenon. So history of the phenomenon, just to educate also people and letting them know that it's not just a US phenomenon. It's actually he has a big history in the European Union. So there are
Mhm.
many countries, of course. It happens in Portugal, in Spain, in Italy, in Germany, and everywhere. And so it is not just a US conversation. And also You had Beatriz Villaroel, who made an amazing presentation, and also demonstrate how science can, with the actual tools, can move to get an answer, a definite answer on this issue, which is very needed. And then you had, of course, Christian van Eyes, so all the problematic tied to the aircrafts and of course aviation, commercial aviation. But I also really like your approach, which is it seems to me that it's also more open to philosophical and social science, philosophy, social sciences, which are also a great focus for us because I think you said something very wise when you said that, yeah, this technology is not just about having another technology. Another technology wouldn't probably help. I think that many scientists think that maybe this technology could replace our fossil fuel stuff, and maybe that's why also there are corporate interest against the transparency of this possibility. But it's not about the type of technology. It's at the end of the day, it's about us, how we would use that technology, how we would use this information for our benefit and not just to destroy ourselves, you know? And maybe, hopefully, it's good that we cannot reverse engineer it. Otherwise, we would probably, if we have something like that, we would probably turn it into a weapon in a matter of seconds, you know?
Probably, but that's one of the interesting things. We can that can also be an excuse. Imagine that we have some
Yeah.
foreign technology from not from here, so to say. The access to this technology may open the gates also for the decentralization of threats. For example,
Mhm.
when you talk about nuclear energy, the nuclear subject is neutral. So what we do with that technology is what defines it.
Yeah.
So we can have nuclear power stations, we can have X-rays, we can have several other things that derive from that type of understanding, but also nuclear weapons. And so that can also be correlated with eventually a technology that we discover that can be used to decentralize production of energy, or it can be used to uh, make bombs that are really powerful and they are mainly indetectable. So this can also be an argument for the not disclosure of this type of technology if it exists. But again, technology will always exist. We'll always reach a period where we have to decide what we do, especially, for example, with AI, we'll reach the level of singularity in a nearby future. And if we don't take hold to these type of technologies now, we may be overpassed. And then what's our role as humans? Because let's be honest, just for us looking at the technology that we have now, artificial intelligence can pass that point of singularity, and then they may have self-conscious and they have self-perception. They can replicate themselves, and they can decide that we are redundant or that we are not that relevant for their perception of this world. And so again, we are just talking about the technology that we have now. And
Yeah.
if we
Yeah.
cannot even manage the technology that we have now, how can we use technology that is 50 years ahead of us,
Yeah.
for example? So again, I think the most important thing, that is also the most difficult one, is for us to debate how can we improve our education system, our understanding of society, of ourselves and our species, to really upgrade ourselves. Because again, I think that we may have a lot of tools, but we are just a monkey with some cool gadgets. The main discovery, the main revolution is within, and we are far behind what we should be what we should be having as a change, as individuals and as a collective.
Yeah. So what's next for you? What are your next project on the topic and also on other topics.
Yeah, so I will not run for a next mandate. The European elections will be in May, in the end of May. So in the beginning of July, we have the voting, and then it's a mandate of 5 years. I will not be running again. And so I will be with my kids. I have two daughters, one of 5, another with 16. And we are adopting a third one. And so we are also adopting a dog. We have two cats. So it will be a house full of females. So my wife, my two daughters, a third one that
That's great.
we hope comes really quick. Two cats that are female, and one dog that is always be female. So I will have a lot in my hands, and I will spend time with all of them. And I'll probably write a book
Nice.
that I think might be interesting to also this view that I have of society and a shift to a non-violent paradigm that is based on the veganism. So the not exploitation of animals, but through a different lens. So just not the traditional lens of, oh, we don't eat animals because it's cruel or may be perceived as cruel, but it has a lot of repercussions. For example, on climate,
Yeah.
on geopolitical, on trade. And so I would go through that lens, more of a science-based approach to the impacts of pushing voluntarily, obviously, to a more plant-based society, and the repercussion, the positive impacts that this may have on the nations and the institutions. When you think about trade, for example, when you talk about agriculture, fisheries, when you talk about health systems, when we talk about biodiversity, when you talk about even our perception as human beings and the paradigm of non-violence that we should be promoting, we should not only be promoting to individuals that look like us. So you,
Mhm.
me, humans, we should also promote it to other species. Because correlating to this topic, imagine
Yeah.
if we have other species,
Exactly.
if they do the same that we do to other species, with with no need to. For example, we now know that in the majority of the countries, if you have access to food, you don't need animal products to survive and
Hmm.
be healthy. So again, if we look at this perspective, imagine that other species look at us the same way. What's the ethics that we can have with this kind of uh, civilization if we do the same to others? That's, well, it's interesting questions that this will not be in the book, so this is obviously not it will
But that
not
would be
be
great.
that I will explore. But we always have to make these questions because we are always evolving, and in a way,
Yeah.
um, the world will continue here with or without us. And I think we
Mm.
should try or thrive to build up an economic and social model that is based on non-violence. Although, obviously, we may always be careful because we know how we work, and so we should also expect some backlashes, and we are not always rational. So violence, it's part of our beings, but we should minimize it as much as we can, and also deal with these kind of emotions, and try to build a society that is more based on cooperation,
Yeah.
on fruitful discussions, on the, I would not say egalitarian division of wealth, because we will always be different. You learn more than me. I will like more this. You will like more that. Cool. But to divide as much as we can the responsibilities, so everyone or the majority of citizens benefit from this economic and social model, and not the other way around. That happens nowadays,
Yeah.
that the concentration of wealth and power is in the hands of a few individuals and a few institutions, and that's not working for the majority.
Yeah, I think that actually politics is very much behind. We always think of the future. We always say we also look to the future, but it's very like politics in general is far behind the present because there's a lot of already changes that are taking place, like you said. plant-based food, which I also share your vision on that, and on animals, of course. I also have three cats actually, and I love them. I used to have dogs also. Amazing. And so it is actually we actually are dealing already with NHI, because artificial intelligence is not a human intelligence. And as you said, I always say that I wish we never ask artificial intelligence to eliminate our problem, because probably it would eliminate us directly. You know, after some calculation, he would probably understand, okay, humans are problems to themselves, so let's take them out of the equation. You know, so there are a lot of things going on, new scientific breakthroughs. And I think that politics needs really to catch up with these and not living in the past. And so we really need people like you. It's actually very sad to hear that you will you actually will withdraw from the political scene, you know. But I'm also very happy to know that you are gonna have a great time and doing for the right reason. So
Yeah, sure, and I'll always help if I'm called to help, and I will always be an ally of these causes, obviously. But I will not be in the European Parliament.
yeah,
But
yeah,
we don't know in the future what I'm going to do. So uh, I may be one of the few politicians that already or doesn't have already a job waiting in the end of the mandate. So that also frees my mind, so to not be just a traditional politician. So I'm
absolutely.
very at ease with my future. I never planned it. And in the end, I just have one basic principle: I have to sleep with my conscience at ease every night. And so, as long as I do that, and I'm healthy, and my family is healthy, and my community is well off, I'll be always here, and I will help in another way, in local politics, in national politics,
Yeah.
also in European politics. We don't know. The future is bright, so that's
There's
the
many
thing.
help. There's many ways to help. So thanks a lot for your service. It was
No,
a
thank you.
pleasure, and it was very inspiring to talk about it, to talk with you about UAPs and a lot of other philosophical stuff.
No, thank you for your work and for the dialogue. And obviously, when if there's any developments, we can talk again. So feel free. It's
Of
okay.
course, you are invited whenever you want. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Bye
Bye.
bye.